Right. I have started this this project last year when we were told by MEC to outroll tablets. And the reason why I thought I'd decide on tablets is the fact that now it starts showing that lecturers are doing much better in their online courses and in designing their online courses in Blackboard as well as in Google Scholar and whatever choice they have. So we found that if you just go that bit further, people are, like Chipo said, working in a reflective manner. So, and this is what this whole research is actually about. So we were actually dumbstruck by this whole tablet idea, and suddenly it came onto my shoulders, train the lecturers. So there's a lot of challenges involved in this. And of course, I cannot lose quality in the whole process. So where we have started was, first of all, let me just get this animation up. There we are. Looking at the Gardner hype cycle. Right. I think most of you are familiar with it. So there's a trigger, and then there's a peak, and you can see it as it goes where most people in South Africa are in the trough of disillusionment, and then eventually they become enlightened. Oh, that's what it's about. So if I look at this cycle in general as it is, what we've experienced in UJ, at UJ in the past 8 months was hit by the tablet devices, now suddenly into the class, and that is the question which I had to look at. How can I design a workshop? Because with students it's not a problem. But for the lecturers, and do they think the thing is a cell phone? Or there were even some people that thought that the tablet, that thing is an e-book. And some people think, like Armin said, Blackboard with a book behind the glass. That now I just PDF everything and now I've got an e-book. Right, so all of those confusions and challenges had to be eliminated. These were the kinds of challenges we were faced with. It's a bit freaky, this wireless technology. Things like that. Are you sure this is how I get data into the cloud? So all of those things we had to look at, and I really had to find some kind of a device that is as simple as possible so that people aren't scared off with it, and yet assure the quality and the design involved in it. So I thought, right, let's start with a familiar and maybe get something people are used to so that it comes into the flow. You can see this is the Beatles song, Hey Jude. And if you follow that algorithm, you can actually sing the whole song. So we had to take some kind of a strategy and start challenging what we were challenged with. Right, so it's actually very simple. If you think in any creative fashion, don't go and buy and get companies and interviews and stuff. Work with what you have. So we've got Blackboard, we've got Wi-Fi on the campuses, we've got the Blackboard mobile app, which all the students have now. We've got a model we work with. We've got ULink, which is an app that Kat developed to put on. It's also through the UGo app that they download from the iStore and Google Play and the Crackberry apps and so on. And we've got the cloud. So what more do we need? So we had to work with what we have. Now, if we start with the actual design and the methodology. This is straightforward design experiment methodology. You start with something, you try it, you iterate, you reiterate, and all the residue that comes of each one of these processes are actually the valuable data and observation you grab to get what you are actually looking for. I must also mention, together with this, I use the theory of design alchemy. Straightforward, but it actually comes from the fact that you work backwards. You want the students to know something, when will they know it, and then you start building around that. So then we kind of eliminate certain opinions. Right, so the intervention there, if I look at this, the cycle here, is actually as soon as people start believing and adopting, that's where you have to jump in. Right, and then I could not resist but thinking back of the old diffusion of innovation theory by Rogers. And in any society we get that, so people might be at different stages when they start adapting. If you look here, you get your innovators and we get the laggards, the lazy people or the resistant people. And I must honestly say, at most places you'll find instructional designers who are also there. Right. Some do it for the money. You know they pay you 80,000 Rand to develop a course for APSA, which is very cool. And then it's content. Right, so there you get the early majority, they adapt, and you get the late majority, so the people we are aiming at are actually in that category there. So why did I consider this? Because if I look at the general population, I must get to adapt to this online blended idea using different devices, smartphones, tablets, Blackboard, online or on-site classroom training. Then I find my early adopters, and there's a lot of lecturers who are early adopters, they attend the first workshops. They're always in that category, and now we have to push to what Jeffrey Moore there calls crossing the chasm. And it is that part which can either make or break the acceptance of the majority. So it's very behavioristic, and it's a very true diffusion that's taking place. And my early adopters will not buy into the idea unless they are shown by people in this gap what it's about. So in short, these are the people waiting in front of Apple in America when the new iPhone comes out. These are the people buying it as soon as it comes to South Africa or fly into America to go and get it a week later. These are the people that might buy it, but they first want to try it out. And then it ends up in the cupboard. That's why we've got a lot of gadgets at home. And then, as soon as it's good enough, Apple in South Africa will decide to distribute it in South Africa. Right. Then these people will have iPhone 6s. Those people will have iPhone 5 and are waiting for the upgrade. These don't care as long as they can send an SMS to the grandchild. And these, for them, it doesn't matter. Okay. Right. So I'm going to skip these slides. They're going to take up time. But this is a video. I actually took the cell phone and I walked on the corridors at UJ, and I tried to film without showing the lecturer's face what they are doing inside the classroom. And very interesting, students coming out with tablets, notebooks, laptops, smartphones, some so huge it looks like a big flat thing against their ears, some recording stuff. And then you go in and you see there's a lecturer using document presenter, and in the next room, the people that work here, this is in the C-less part. The people that, or the lecturer that was in the classroom, half time of the lecturer, has got the overhead transparency up. Right, and there's students sitting, writing down the transparencies. What a productive and active lecture. They're doing an activity, they're writing. Right, so if we look at both sides of the coin, this is another video, it's about 7 minutes long, where I actually took the tablet into the classroom. These students of the extended degree were busy with career orientation in financial management. And nearly all of them are busy using tablets, but the lecturer as a facilitator is standing there and saying, right, look there. What do you see? Name 5 things there. They put up their hand, so there's a bit of interactivity, or I must say a secondary interactivity when they start using the tablets as well. I've got the focus group interview after this as well, and that's how I get to both sides of the coin and the quality. Because the students say, I ask them, why before the lecturer handled or facilitated and told you what to do on the tablet in the classroom, why did you always go on YouTube and Facebook and they still go on Facebook and WhatsApp and things like that? And the students' words, there's 5 of them, says, because the lecture repeats certain things over and over. It bores me if I cannot say anything. So that's how I came up with, or got to read and got to know the diffusion theory. Because I know I work with these different categories, but I also experience this. Those are the people that say, I'll try it, but is the quality okay? You know, isn't it just a new fad? Let me hear, maybe it will go over. Ironically enough, Walkmans are back as well. They're just called MP3 players. If we look there, this is lowering the standard. You know, those old lines on the rock. It's lowering the standard. We spoon feeding them, and we make people lazy and infatuated with technology. And it's not like that. What do the kids want? So they're sitting, now there's pressure from different sides. So if I talk about quality implementation, these are just a few ideas that were jotted down. It's not about the quantity, and that's for people, content and marks. It should be an example to a lecturer on how it can be done, whatever course they implement. It should not confuse students, but it should not bore the students as well. It should not lead to frustration for both the lecturer and the student. It should be activity-based and examples of what can be used in the classroom. That's what lecturers want to see, and that's what students want to see in the class or want to experience. It should be available online, and it should also comply with distance learning and on-site learning. So the immediate solution for me was an e-handout. Right, so what is an e-handout? And there is a humble definition I've written down there. It's an electronic document designed for the purpose of guiding learning in a learning environment where electronic access to digital support learning material is possible. The e-handout contains hyperlinks in various ways so to pedagogically cause interactive knowledge. The e-handout is not the same as an e-book or an iBook, where content becomes part of the sequence of learning events and hyperlinks are constructed around the content. So an example of an e-handout, I've got here for you. Let me just get onto this slide. Right. Let's get in there. There's an e-handout, and that was the simple one I've used for the first workshop with lecturers. There's an activity, so they all come there, and right, now we take it that they are prepared and they can tap and tick and get email on it. I'll get to you now on how I've used the flipped classroom idea to get that done. Right, activity 1. Introduce yourself, and there's a diagram from the iCloud. If I scroll a bit down, they use the UJ's U-Link register, and they were shown how to take, our students take with a cell phone and their tablets, they take register inside the class, and then we also, always on an e-handout, provide a QR code. And the thing is, if there they had to watch a video clip and then they had to vote about the video. So why those activities? Use video. The students want to see video. Why the voting poll? Because clickers are like last century. So they've got stuff in their hands. Why can't they just use it in the class? And that was a simple Google forum which I've created, and the hyperlink is just placed in the e-handout. So what students do is the lecturer also puts up the e-handout on the big screen, and that QR code is wide enough so students just take the normal, let's just cancel this one, the normal cell phone, and what they do then is they just scan the QR code, and it takes them directly into Google Docs or Dropbox or whatever open source platform you want to use. So this is how they receive the e-handout via email. So they just tap on the hyperlinks, and at the end of the e-handout, there's a lot of resources. So why should I go and dump content and say to them, you must read this now? While the content is available, if they have any queries. If they can tap, we've even got a disabled student that can tap. So they can really use that. So they either tap on the hyperlink or they scan the QR code. I just want to show you how it looks like. And there's the Google form directly online. So they quickly fill it out, and at the end of it, that's unfortunately where I need the laptop still, I can show them the results in the voting poll. So that's one way of doing quick formative assessments in class. It doesn't only have to be multiple choice and questionnaires and things like that. And the moment the lecturers started to look at this simple 3-page e-handout that kept them busy for 2 hours, they started to revisit their courses in Blackboard and in Google Scholar, because they realized what experience they're going through. The Blackboard mobile app they use, so it doesn't mean that each one of the lecturers or each student in the class, for that matter, needs a device or a smartphone, because you log in with your own user ID. So whether they're in groups or if they quickly share it, they have still collaborated in the process. There they have to go to Blackboard through the UGO app, and then the students had to, or the lecturers had to introduce them in a Blackboard discussion forum. And this was the last activity. They got a lot of time to do that, because remember, this is now the first time they interactively engaged with a tablet or a smartphone. So they just had to do this. Team up in a group, take a picture of the group, do a little presentation, and then they create a little mini e-portfolio. And when they're done with that, it must be posted online as well. One from the group comes and presents it. So with these kind of cables, I then plug it into the projector, they plug it onto the person that presents iPad, and then that person gets the opportunity to get the feel of how it is to present also with a tablet. And straightforward like that, and now I see the Blackboard courses are also starting to look much better than what they actually are. However, there's still another challenge now that we're faced with. Let's just get the definition back there. Right. And this is the latest research on the life cycle of a device, and specifically the iPad, and combined with a diffusion theory model. Can you see the problem that exists there? First of all, take in regard, this majority group, this group actually pushes that group to keep up with technology. Right. These two groups are actually engaged, because this one won't do anything if this one doesn't show them. If my early majority do not come up with suggestions and point them out to the early adopters, no one will talk to the innovators. And then, of course, there I've got a clash. And what bothers me is this gap, because it means the faster this is going, the wider this gap is going to become. But if you look at it, it's going to form a sinus wave, and they are going to meet each other somewhere. And ironically enough, we've just been through such a cycle, from the laptop adaptability, and then Steve Jobs came up with the iPad. And now we're again starting the process over until the next invention comes out. So we have to be aware of that. You'll always get the resistors. And specifically, the e-handout I thought would cater, because it's a familiar PDF document. People are familiar with hyperlinks. So now we're actually only incorporating the cloud, even though it's a different device I'm working with. Right, so what the e-handout attempts to bridge would then be specifically that familiar associated with functionality. We try to say to them, it's not that strange. It just looks different. Innovation versus quality. So we don't want everything that's hyped up to also be just some new thing like a lollipop that's invented and they don't taste good and there they go off the market. The same happens if I sell the idea of proper activity-based learning. My later groups, that's now the late adopters and the laggards, tend to find a quick fix just so that they can get promoted, or so that I use technology in the class. See, I've got a module in Blackboard, but there's bugger all in there. Right, all the content dumps are coming in. It is so that the early majority determines the quality that flows over. The rate of adoption develops or is depleted towards the laggards. It's a description of the diagram. And the activities, when I train the lecturers, should have something of this in, so that it's not totally strange to them. It's just a different way of doing it. So the whole idea of development gets lost if I move further on that diffusion theory and the development of a new device, or even a new theory for that matter. But there's other factors that play a role. So I had to go and investigate where those factors come from. And interesting, they came from the technology acceptance model from Venkatesh. It's not going to be very clear, but I just want to give you an idea of how it looks like. The model is actually about these two things: the perceived usefulness of something and the perceived ease of using it. And that's why people are resistant against technology most of the time. What do I use it for? Is it easy to use? Nobody showed me. Nobody told me. Or like we mentioned from the data from the students, nobody trained me the software. Nobody have to. If it was part of the activity telling you now you must try this or find your own kind of a thing, well, it depends on the circumstances. Then the ease of use is realized and we know where to intervene then. Right, but getting away from that, the technology adaptation or adaptation model then brought me to using the flipped classroom, which we heard of a few times today. So getting lecturers to be familiar with this little device, we designed a pre-workshop letter. And in that letter, we said, in a week's time, you're going to have a tablet training or a workshop on how to use tablets in the classroom. Ensure that your tablet can do the following, and there's a whole rubric. First of all, they must have access to email, their university email address, else I cannot email the e-handout to them. They must have a Dropbox account, they must have a Google account, and then they must have downloaded the UGO app and the Blackboard app. And it's described exactly to them how to do that. So by the time I see them in the training a week later, they were already interactively involved with the device. So it's not like a 6 months computer training and tablet training beforehand and where do you switch it on and where do you switch it off. And we also mention in the letter, make use of the campus's Wi-Fi because it costs you nothing. And if you are not comfortable, ask a colleague you know who would be comfortable. I mean, the collaboration must come in somewhere. Right. So, and what we've heard earlier on as well, the whole spoon feeding idea. We must be careful to create a precedence with that. Right, and then of course to gather data from those variables that I mentioned that influence it from the technology acceptance model, I posted a pre and a post workshop questionnaire. Also in Google Drive, it's Google Form, on that pre-workshop letter. So they are already familiarized with a hyperlink that they can actually click on in their email, coming from another university email. Right. So in the e-handout, okay. Then, after the analysis, those are all the variables. Quite interesting things that came up there. This is the pre and post comparison. There were about 320 responses. So from lecturers that did the pre and the post workshop questionnaire. Here I'm again about quantity. I'll summarize it for you on the next slide. Right. This is actually what it boils down to. And these are actually the 5 questions from all of the data that I've seen and the observations and what lecturers say. What I want to put on the floor. Qualities in the eye of the beholder, if we invent this, for those who teach and for those who are taught. So, will the design of the sequence of activities determine deep learning? If it doesn't, then it's a useless exercise. Does content written in electronic form present a learning experience to students? Why so much content and such a small variety of activities? If a student is not a fast reader, does it mean that that student comprehends slower? And my last question, does quality mean the more comprehension exercises students do, the better students they become? And I think that's where people are still stuck with content. and we get the idea of creating artifacts as well, educational artifacts. So the follow-up workshop that actually comes from this is situated around lecturers now creating their own artifacts in the cloud, in Blackboard. Then when we get together, they take all of those artifacts and we talk about sequencing them and throwing out what is not needed and designing something that I can use over and over, as long as I don't use it every day with students. And the advanced workshop then gets to where they start right with the artifacts, with a complete new course that comes in. They must bring the content, and we start converting that into an integrative tablet Blackboard course. So we do it hands-on together, and it does not take that much time. If they know what they're doing with the artifacts, they realize where to sequence it. But I must say to you, the people that did this were already well-oiled Blackboard users. But if I start with the early majority or the later majority with Blackboard users, same ideas apply. It just takes that your workshop just needs to be a bit longer. But they'll get it eventually. Right, and that's my story. Are there any questions, ladies and gentlemen? I try to do it quick with a graveyard shift. Yes. I don't know how loud your voice is.
Thank you for the presentation. It was interesting. I just want to ask a question. In your interaction with the lecturers that were using the tablets, were you able to identify what is the major problem of not using technology? Or is it because of being from a different generation gap? Or is it because of lack of knowledge? Or is it because of bombarded by a lot of technologies that comes in and go? What was their feeling about the whole thing?
There's two things. I'm glad you asked that, because I wanted to mention it, but I'm actually so scared that I might be thrown with tomatoes. There's two things that I picked up from this, and I'm glad I can mention it here. I'm just too scared of writing it down still. They are scared. That it's still that old syndrome of, I'm going to touch that button and the thing's going to explode. Or, maybe when I check my UJ mail, I erase all my other email. That kind of paranoia with working with technology. I think maybe we embedded it in them because they're scared of technology, because there's so many firewalls and security and rules around this. It's okay, better safe. Then the other reason that I found was visual literacy. With even the highest chairs sitting in the room was a problem. Do you know that our first and second year students don't know what that little save icon means? They just know you click on it to save. They don't know it's a little stiffy disk because they've never seen one. And when you get to lecturers, someone, I'm now generalizing, but in a related question. When you get to it and they see a little picture, and the picture shows a disk, even a CD, to us it means you can save it there. For them, there's no link between a disk, the functionality, and what the icon does. So for me, it's more a problem of visual literacy than of illiteracy. And I've got a thing that I always say, and my colleagues know about this. I always say to the students and sometimes to the lecturers, RTBS. And then they say to me, what does that mean? Then I say to them, it means read the bloody screen. Right. And needless to say, the honors students say RTFS. So if we look at these things, I think it's a visual literacy problem. So it doesn't help you going to compile another document that's a lot of paper again, with a lot of icons and explaining what the icons do. And I'm again throwing that old argument in. When you upgrade your cell phone, do you go for training? You figure it out. And it's partially the purpose of that pre-workshop letter. So all that I've done, not like the engineering faculty that records all the lectures and now they want to stream it and that's now flipped classroom. We've just used a letter instead of a preparation workshop. But it must just not scare them off, so that they play with it themselves, own pace, own speed. They get the letter a week in advance. And I just held thumbs and hoped that it would work, and it worked. There's a few people, because we're usually there half an hour or an hour to half an hour before the official booked workshop to help people. And that's really technical. Like when they go onto Wi-Fi, they forgot to do the setting automatically to pick up the network. They put it on a manual connection. So that's really things that, I mean, you don't expect that from a person using an iPad for the first time to know that. So with those things we help them. But tapping and clicking and ticking, no. They're perceptually, motorically okay.
Yes. One of the, maybe to also add, I was actually privileged to go in when he was doing this study. One of the lecturers at one of our institutions, in one of our campuses, highlighted that, I don't know if you've seen the content or the work that he put into just that page alone. It's a lot of work. And he was saying, I'm marking 800 splits. You have this that I have to click, go find it somewhere, meaning I have to prepare it. It's a waste of time. And then one of them even highlighted that I think it had to do partly because of the attitude towards technology. That really, do I need to do all this? Because all the things that you just did, like you were saying, which we actually fighting, I could have just put on a different, maybe probably on Microsoft something that would probably give them and they copy, and that's it. And it saves him or her time. You don't have to stress about the links that don't work, the Wi-Fi that sometimes doesn't work, and sometimes the date sheet, the pin codes and what have you.
Yeah, and you'll always get resistance.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. So I just said to people, if you don't want to use the technology, then don't use it. You are not forced to use it. If they don't want to use it, then leave it alone. But you are going to get pressure from the students. And we're already experiencing it. You can ask my colleagues the past 3-4 years. But sir, why don't you put it in Blackboard? Why can't we just do this test online? And then they start running to CAT, and then we must jump around and talk to them. So the pressure will come from the student side eventually. It's an adapt or die.
Thank you very much. You have confirmed what most of the other people have said today, and I actually want to make a comment, sort of a meta-analysis of what I heard today, is that our big challenge is to get lecturers to move their teaching to a higher level, and it is a challenge. And I'm going to refer to Seymour Papert. He was the big education guru on why do students play games and why do they want to play more complicated and more challenging games. And it's not about the difficulty, it's about the motivation. And I think there is something of that present everywhere, maybe even for lecturers, I assume. We are assuming that more technology equals better teaching and better learning. That is, I don't think the lecturers are always, they always buy into that. And The motivation for lecturers, I find at UP, maybe other universities have more money than UP for different things. They are so pressurized into producing research that they will only do more time on the educational technology learning curve if they are sure that it's going to create more time later on for them to do research. They are not really concerned with the quality of their graduates because they are only responsible for this module and that module. So I see a little bit of a bigger problem here, and how we are going to address this motivation of the lecturers. So we call it scared, but if they spend the time to really start reading the screens and using the devices, they will master them, but they're not motivated to spend the time. And I think that's what we must get around to, how to, which is the carrot we must put on the stick, and then I think everything will fall in place, or it might. That's just a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's valuable. Maybe there's a topic for further discussion.